Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Karishma. I've qualified UGC NET JRF, and before that I've qualified UGC NET thrice. I've qualified APSET and GATE as well. I've also been gold medalist in both my bachelor's and master's degree in English. So today's video is particularly about I.A.Richards. So what we've discussed about I.A.Richards was that he has given the concept of practical criticism. If you have not seen the video, the earlier video, I think you should go and see the video, because that's where I discuss about the concept of practical criticism given by I.A.Richards, and what is the experiment that he conducted. It is actually an introductory video on new criticism. So before you delve into the ideas that are given by I.A.Richards, I think you should understand the concept of new criticism, and only then you should get into the concepts, books by I.A.Richards. So yeah, first and foremost thing, let me talk about the books or the works of I.A.Richards. The works of I.A.Richards are very important. One is the Principles of Literary Criticism. It was written in the year 1924, and if you want to know the chronological order, I've also given the date, so you can take the notes in a very chronological order. The first work would be Meaning of Meaning, like first important work. Foundation of Aesthetics was in 1922, but uh, in view of the UGC NET exam, the most important works would be Meaning of Meaning, the Principles of Literary Criticism, Practical Criticism. These three works are very important in particular view of the UGC NET examination. So the Meaning of Meaning came in the year 1923. It was written along with C.K. Ogden, and he independently has written the work The Principles of Literary Criticism, which came in the year 1924, and the work Practical Criticism. Practical Criticism is actually he is a professor of Cambridge, and he conducted a work. All right. And also you should understand the subtitle. The Practical Criticism is subtitled A Study in Literary Judgment. Okay, so the subtitle is very fit for the work, because he has understood the he has actually experimented with his students, and what that experiment is actually, he has given a set of poems to his students, and then he asked them to analyze the poetry without giving any kind of information about the writer or the background or any other details about the poet. He has only given a page of the poem and asked the students to analyze it. So what the students did was, they actually have analyzed the text without any preconceived notions. See, these are the lines actually from the text Practical Criticism by I.A.Richards. Here he says that I have set three aims before me in constructing this book. First, to introduce a new kind of documentation to those who are interested in the contemporary state of culture. Secondly, to provide a new technique, okay, for those who wish to discover for themselves what they think and feel about poetry. Discover for themselves what they think and feel about poetry, and why they should like or dislike it. All right. Thirdly, to prepare the way for educational methods more efficient than those we use now in developing discrimination and the power to understand what we hear and read. So the power, this is what very which is very important, the power to understand what we hear and read. So that's what he says. So I.A.Richard argue here in the work Practical Criticism. I.A.Richard argues for the importance of close textual analysis and the removal of extraneous biographical and historical concepts from the interpretation of the text. So that's what exactly he does in his experiment. He only gives the the text, the poem, and he does not give any other information related to it, which is where the close textual analysis is done, and then the anything outside the text could be eliminated through this process, right? So there would be no extraneous influence, be it biographical, historical, or anything. Okay, so the text would be interpreted only from the text. the form, the meter, the rhyme scheme, the rhythm. Only the text would be interpreted, and not anything about the the details of the writer, the biography of the writer. Anything would be not even considered while analyzing the text, which gives the person who analyzes the text an objective view towards the text. So let's get into the terms that A.Richards has given. There are particularly, the first term is four kinds of meaning. He says that four factors affect the meaning of any word. All right. What are the four factors? He says the first factor is sense, the second one is feeling, the third one is tone, and the fourth one is intention. What is sense? Sense is what is said by the writer. So, what is being conveyed by the writer is what sense means. Feeling would be what the writer is feeling, what the speaker's attitude is towards the subject. For example, if I am feeling a positive thing positively towards a specific subject, I would feel positively about the subject and write it in a much positive manner. If I think about it negatively, I would write it in a negative manner. So that would be my feeling towards it, the text, right? So feeling actually studies the emotion, desire, and will with which the words are said. All right. Tone is also considered feeling, but you should particularly understand is tone towards the readers. Okay, with what kind of attitude towards the reader that the words are said, the way you talk to the listener. For example, if you observe, the tone we use in particular at a particular time actually changes. For example, if we talk to our elders, we talk in a certain way. If we talk to our professors or any for in a formal setting, the tone would be very much different. See, for example, I'm talking to you and I'm teaching this class, I would be talking this way, and I don't think I would be communicating this way to any of the people that I see in real life, right? So the tone in which you are conveying also says a lot about how serious or unserious the topic must be, right? So tone would be the author's attitude towards the listeners or the readers. Feeling would be the author's attitude towards the subject of what about which he is writing or about which he is talking. All right. And then there is intention, the conscious or unconscious effect that the writer wants to induce, or the aim. For example, let's take an example of a politician. uh, what is being said by the politician, what is being conveyed by the politician would be the sense. And what is how serious about it, how serious about the topic is the politician, is actually conveyed through the feeling. Like if he talks like for example, he's talking about the kinds of policies that he's going to implement if he comes to rule, that would be the feeling. All right. And the tone would be what kind of tone he uses towards the listeners or the voters would be the tone. So the intention would be for him to get the votes and for him to get into rule, right? So that would be sense, feeling, tone, and intention. The speaker's writer's purpose modifies his entire speech. For example, if the as I've said, the politician's purpose is to get votes. That's why that is his intention, and that's why his tone changes, his sense changes. He used to have particular sense, and he used to have particular tone for that intention to be achieved, for that purpose to be achieved, right? And I.A.Richard says that the four kinds of meaning should be very essential in a word, and also depending on the kind of person and the kind of purpose that you are using the word for, the dominance of any of these four meanings might change. For example, as we have taken the example of politician, the intention would be dominant. So all the three would be present, but intention would be dominant. So it also depends on the kind of person and on the kind of purpose they are using that dialogue for. So I.A.Richard says the total meaning of anything is a blend of all the four kinds of meanings. So he says that for you to totally understand the meaning of it. For 100% meaning, all the four kinds of meaning should be blended, and only then you get the perfect meaning, the total meaning. And that is the first one. Okay, the first term given by I.A.Richards, the four kinds of meaning. Who gave the concept of four kinds of meaning? If the question comes in the exam, the answer would be I.A.Richards. The second term would be two kinds of language. What are the two kinds of language? Scientific and emotive. He says that the two kinds of languages are pseudo statements. All right, pseudo. What does the word pseudo means? The word pseudo means false or fake. The two kinds of languages that I.A.Richards put forth is scientific and emotive language. Scientific language, simply, what is a scientific language? For example, if you take a scientifically researched paper, the language used there would be scientific language. So if you observe the language on that paper, what is it? What are the qualities of it? Those would be based on facts. The scientific language would always be based on facts. It cannot be based on your imagination or something like that. It is actually based on facts or proofs. It is verifiable. As I mentioned, it has proofs. So when you have proofs, you can verify what is being said in the scientific paper. And it is also authentic. You cannot give gimmicks in the scientific paper, right? It is very authentic. And what is an emotive language? Emotive language is also called a poetic language. If we observe any poetry, what kind of language does any poetry have? It is quite opposite to the scientific paper. If you observe it, it is not verifiable. It explains itself by feeling. It is like what does feeling mean? It is kind of wanting to faking it, feeling. If you observe the kind of vocabulary used in a poetry, for example, if you take the word poem canonization, the words used by not only canonization, in if you take the poetry of any metaphysical poems, I'm saying the example of metaphysical poets because there it is very evident. The characteristic of feeling is very evident. If you take any other poetry also, it's very much there, but just because it's metaphysical poetry, it gets very evident. If you take other for example, in the example of canonization, he says that we would both of us would be in a phoenix, and then rise up, our love would rise up. And then he also says that after we die, they'll canonize us. All right, all these are the writer either has an extravagant use of language or extravagant thoughts. All right, so all these are the characteristic features of poetic or emotive language, and which is very opposite to the kinds of scientific language. So Richard says that language has to be used in a special emotive way so that the poet's experiences can be simulated in the minds of the reader. That is exactly what poetry is for. See, when he says I feel sad, okay, he felt sad. That's what as a reader we might feel. But when he says when he employs use of metaphors or use of any other literary devices, the poet actually transports us and makes the reader sympathize or empathize with him. So that's the power of poetry. It relies on emotional and personal response rather than factual information. So how personal and how emotional the response would be, that good the poetry, the response is actually tells how good the poetry has influenced you, rather than factual info. Factual info is actually scientific paper. You cannot be the sun rises in the east, yeah, this is my poetry. You cannot do that. You should be giving it in a motive or poetic language. And then after that concept comes the semantic triangle, which was also given by I.A.Richards. The semantic triangle concept actually comes from the text meaning of meaning. All right. Here he gives a triangle wherein the reference is a subject, the referent is the object, and the symbol is the sign. All right. Here the reference, the subject, is the realm of memory where there is recollection of the past experiences. For example, If I talk about something, then I become the reference. I recollect something and I talk about something. All right, that's what subject or reference mean. What is the something I talk about? I talk about the referent or the object. Object that is recollected through reference. All right, that becomes the reference. For example, if we remember a man, he becomes the referent. All right. For example, if I talk about the man, saying that I have seen a man in a blue shirt. He has a very he has buzz cut and he's very tall. In all these are the experiences that I talk from recollection of my memory. All right. So I am the reference. He is being referent. And what are the words I used? I said that he is very tall. He wore a blue shirt and he has a buzz cut. All those words that I've used would be the symbol. So symbol is a word which creates a referent with the help of reference. All right, so all these words create reference because I have used the reference. Already they create referent because I've used reference. I've used my recollection of the past experiences to create the reference through the use of symbol. Those are my past sorry, those are the sounds or words which I use to create the referent. All right, this is very clear. I would suggest you to screenshot this so that it becomes very understandable for you to remember later. So here is a picture of it. You can always download it or look at Google for these images. So this is another concept given by I.A.Richards. This is feed forward. What is feed forward? If you ask, thinking of what to come next and controlling our steps in view of what is to come. For example, if I say that there is going to be an examination in 2 weeks, and I thought, okay, if I prepare like this, my exam is gone forever. I cannot qualify this examination. So I just controlled my steps and then studied to and then began to study. So uh, that's what happened. That is feed forward. I thought of what is coming next, and then I controlled my mischief. I controlled my behavior. I controlled my steps in the view of what is to come. So I that is called feed forward. All right. So and then I think I've actually covered everything. So this is the only thing. The experiment practical criticism underscores the importance of training in critical thinking in close reading skills. Close reading, as I've mentioned in the previous video, is a very important aspect of new criticism. And also, the practical criticism gives or talks about the importance of training in critical thinking. Critical thinking is where you think critically without, basing your opinions on any preconceived notions. You begin to think critically about one particular subject. So that's what practical criticism says. And I.A.Richards is the first one to give the term practical criticism. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you understand all the lecture about it. So you can even take a screenshot of this video and use it in your running notes and make the best use of it. And if you have any other doubts regarding this particular concept, please feel free to comment down in the comment section, and I would be getting back to you with better explanations as well. So yeah, thank you, and also please do subscribe.